I wonder if you can guess who I am.
I'm Baby Jane Hudson.
Who the hell was Baby Jane Hudson?
I've written a letter to Daddy saying I love you. My sister doesn't ever go out. She's not fit to receive visitors. Jane, I want to talk to you.
I'm afraid I have bad news. We'll probably have to sell the house.
You aren't ever going to sell this house. And you aren't ever going to leave it.
She's sick and she's not getting any better. You mean Jane? I think she seems much better lately.
I was cleaning the cage. The bird got out.
You wouldn't be able to do these awful things to me if I weren't still in this chair.
But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
Jane, please. Don't do this to me. Jane! Jane, please!
Whatever happened to Baby
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome back.
Whew.
I'm excited for this one, Pete.
This is really fun.
We've been meaning to get to this movie for a while.
Yes,
but
we
I
have.
think that we've landed on the right moment.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think we're ready. I think that it's been a long time coming, holding off on this one, but we've got a lot to talk about. But everybody out there listening, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott.
And these are the movies that made us gay. Yay. Oh, boy. Well, Scott, let's just cut right to it. Why don't you go ahead and talk about what we watched and who we watched with?
You probably already guessed it. We got to our Whatever Happened to Baby Jane episode.
Yes, indeed.
Directed by Robert Aldrich with our friend Kelly Hardy.
Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on.
Very special episode.
I mean, it's just a lot of people at, like, when are you going to do Baby Jane? Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get around to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's so much to unpack with this. I mean, how much are we going to talk about Feud? How much are we going to talk about?
I feel like if you had like a at-home bingo card for this show,
Sure.
talking about Ryan Murphy would probably be like the center of the card.
Sure. Well, I mean, Kelly, you mentioned it earlier, Feud from 2017, the documentary.
As far as we're concerned.
The place where we all learned about the buckle.
Oh, obsessed. Was the buckle a real procedure? Who knows?
Did Joan get it? It's very like alleged. No one really knows.
My grandmother had very sunken cheekbones like that, and if she were not currently deceased, I would have some hard questions about the buckle for her.
Ooh.
Yeah, so wild. The performances were all great in that, but I mean, we're here to talk about the real performances.
Yes.
Right.
And I know that Ryan Murphy's show, like all TV shows, I think did take some creative liberties with the real story of these two.
How dare you?
100% fact accuracy. I think one of the first times that I had heard a major reference to whatever happened to Baby Jane is in, I think it's in Unzipped.
Sure.
Doesn't Isaac Mizrahi talk about, you are in that chair?
Because Isaac is talking about they had a teacher in fashion school that used to say, take your drawing pencil, but your drawing pencil. Kind of like yar in that chair, Blanche.
Your drawing pencil. Right? And so I remember specifically Isaac Mizrahi doing this, like, Bette Davis impression.
Had you not seen it before?
I had not seen it before.
Okay,
then.
I had seen it before going into that documentary.
Well, I saw Unzipped when it first came out, which was like 96
Okay, sure.
or something. So.
Okay. What was your first introduction to Baby Jane?
I didn't see it until I was in my early 30s, which as a as a human being who wanted to be an old lady from a very, very small age, I don't know how I missed this. I was also raised by someone who would spend Mother's Days drawing on Joan Crawford eyebrows with me and watching Mommy Dearest.
Love that.
So I don't know how I missed this one, but my God, when you see it, the grotesqueness makes a huge impact.
Oh, yes. And that's something that this movie, growing up with my grandmother in the house, and actually in my grandmother's house, something about this movie, the period that this movie was made in, and just being populated by two older ladies, it's like if you were surrounded by ladies of a certain age growing up, certain things just hit,
definitely.
certain things in the house, you're just like, oh yeah. Just a little stool next to the phone, so you can like sit and like take notes next to, because like the phones weren't like, they didn't move all over the house at that point. You had to sit right next to it. Yeah, very specific. Scott, when did you first see it?
I first saw this movie when I was in high school. I think that we had just gotten the Netflix DVDs.
Ooh.
And I remember I got some old movie posters from my stepdad's mother, Dottie, and they were Don's posters when he was young, probably in his teens or early 20s, and one of them was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
What?
And I remember looking at the poster of these two women and the title of the movie, and it has some crazy like tagline.
Right.
That's just very like 60s, like shocking, like you better like the last 10 minutes of this movie will like shock you. So I remember I sought it out on Netflix, and I watched it with my mom and stepdad.
Okay.
And I didn't have too much context of both actresses. It was probably my first Bette Davis and Joan Crawford movie I had ever seen, too. So, yeah, I watched this movie when I was around, like, 17 years old.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I feel like the first Joan Crawford movie I had ever seen was definitely Mommy Dearest.
Sure.
Because that came out in 82, and like we talked about in that episode, being such a young kid at the time, we thought it was...
You just thought it was a Joan Crawford movie. You had no idea that was Faye Dunaway.
Absolutely. So to me, that was my first Joan Crawford movie. I don't know that I had seen very many Bette Davis movies, but
Escape from Witch Mountain.
Oh well,
Watch Her in the Woods.
Watch Her in the Woods.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the same film to me at this point.
Isn't she in one of the Witch Mountains though?
Yeah,
I think she is.
She might be.
And there's also the what is that movie that we watched where she died in the middle of the production?
Oh, that's the that's like the weird stepmother movie. Yeah. Have you ever seen that?
I know that I have.
It's
pretty
Betty's
crazy.
last movie, and it also has Tia Carrera in it, right?
Does it?
Hold
Jesus.
on, I have to fact check this.
Okay, well, you're fact checking that. I've got the poster here, and it says, "Sister, sister, oh so fair. Why is there blood all over your hair?"
Yes.
And then there's a little says things you should know about this motion picture before buying a ticket. Let's see, what should we know? If you're long-standing fans of Miss Davis and Miss Crawford, we warn you this is quite unlike anything they've ever done. 2, you are urged to see it from the beginning. 3, be prepared for the macabre and the terrifying. 4, we ask you pledge to keep the shocking climax a secret. And 5, when the tension begins to build, try to remember it's just a movie.
I love that shit of just how they used to sell movies especially at this time in the early 60s, just because a movie like Psycho was such a game changer.
Yeah.
Of how you market movies.
Yeah. I forget that there's would you call it a twist at the end?
I think it's a twist.
Yeah, it's a twist.
It's a gag.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. Because and even at that point, you're starting to sympathize with Jane. So weird.
Okay, so update. It's called Wicked Stepmother, and it is not Tia Carrera. It is Barbara Carrera.
Okay.
And yeah,
close.
And she died midway in the or she quit.
No, she died.
She died.
Yeah. Because it was in the 80s when she was like super frail and she weighed like 35 pounds and was like just all.
And they ended up writing a mother and daughter pair of witches.
Right.
Just so they could cast somebody younger.
Yeah, they kind of replaced the character and they're like, oh, your daughter's here and she's a witch now too.
We caught this movie on Sling about a year ago.
Yeah. Very crazy. It's that 80s era and there are like Tonight Show interviews that you can look up and she just looks so frail and teeny tiny It's crazy. That
I mean,
the same
it's
woman.
wild that when you watch this movie that came out in 1961, I mean, 1950, the year that she did All About Eve, only 12 years before, and just like, she just looks like an old lady in this movie. But that's just how she aged, just from booze and cigarettes.
Sure. Now, I'm sure we can do the math at some point, but are they even in their 60s, these two actresses, when they're shooting this movie? Or are they in their late 50s?
They might be late 50s,
Yeah.
and I think Bette Davis is wearing, if the documentary Feud is to be believed, Bette Davis is wearing like a lot of prosthetic.
Sure.
And I don't know how much of that is also her jowls, or if those are her own jowls that she brought from home.
They may have been. This movie opens up this vaudeville scene, and it's the very first thing you see is it says 1917.
Wild.
And you're just like, what?
Yeah. Like World War I was happening in the opening of was the context of the opening of this movie.
And this audience, this vaudeville audience, this is like some Walt Disney Main Street USA.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Like Mary Poppins looking audience, right? And, it's crazy when you think about, entertainment. And again, growing up with my grandparents around the house, that, they just, if they would just like, someone would break into song and it would just be the highlight of their month.
A tap dancing little girl would just bring the house down.
Oh my goodness. The most talent you've ever seen. Just like if you just did a little dance, like they would just be like, oh my goodness, this person, give them an Academy Award. So I don't know if it's just like pre-rock and roll or what.
I think people were just that hard up for entertainment that they had to go watch this little girl sing Letters to Daddy.
Sure. And the audience is children, but it's all their parents. And when they ask for requests, the whole audience are just pushing each other over, trying to like shout out what song they want. It's like Def Comedy Jam, like trying to shout out what song they want to hear. And finally one like small boy is like, Letters to Daddy. And this is Baby Jane and Blanche's actual father.
Yes.
That's like kind of leading the gig. Okay.
The barker for Baby Jane.
Right, yeah. He's definitely a carnival barker for
And
her.
it's just kind of fucked up that this is a song about a little girl singing to her dead father in heaven. Just like, this movie definitely has some daddy issues.
But then she gets up and does a little jig with her actual dad who's there. But this is when we see that, Baby Jane Hudson is on the marquee in what looks to be like permanent
headlining.
Letter.
She's headlining this shit.
Letterhead, this is not like, they're not moving this around like, at Wendy's. This is like, this looks welded onto this theater. And
she has she has a residency there.
Yes, she definitely has a residency there. And so she's making the money. She's pulling in, these audiences. And her poor sister, Blanche. Is it ever established who's the elder sister? Is it Blanche?
I mean, Blanche looks about 45 as a child. So it's assumed that she's the older one.
The child Blanche does look like a grown woman, a short grown woman.
But they're very close in age, though.
Yeah. Well, also, too, the Baby Jane actress, it's not a baby. This is a girl, like... This is a kid that's, she's acting like a baby. She's got like the curly hair and all that stuff. And I love the life-size Baby Jane dolls that are for sale.
I mean, I have a few dolls in my closet that I collect, but I do not collect this type of doll because this is some weird shit right
just
here.
Weird, yeah.
This is just weird.
It's the come-to-life murder you doll.
Yeah.
It's the full-sized human doll that no one wants to have.
Yeah, they still make like life-size Barbie dolls like that, and they're so odd.
Very unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're it's 1917 we've established they're $3.25. They're $3.25. I wonder how much that would
that would probably be like $70.
Yeah, probably
in today's dollar
for a doll. But it's just so sad right off the bat that she's out there, she's singing and dancing, doing her little like soft shoe on the stage, and Blanche just altruistic Blanche. She doesn't need a popsicle.
But she's going to make them look real bad over it.
Yeah, that's true.
The line that Baby Jane says when she's like, I make the money, I should get whatever I want, when her father denies her ice cream, is the most chilling, like, middle-aged Kim Cattrall delivery.
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I love also, this is at the stage door, and so all the families are there watching, and you hear the 80-yard parents. What do they say? Like, oh, it's all the parents' fault.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I find just child actors to be very fascinating. Like the dynamic between child actors and their parents for when they really are paying the bills. Like, what is that relationship like?
Yeah.
So it's always been around.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty crazy. And tangent, but Will Wheaton just did some podcast where he went on and they were talking to him about Stand By Me, and he's like, "Oh, I totally understood the character because I was fully emotionally abused by my parents," putting his parents on blast. And I'm like, whoa. Well, and I think this is the first time he's ever really talked
about that in that HBO child actor documentary directed by Alex Winter.
Oh, okay.
Where he talked about that.
Okay. Did I miss that? Did I fall asleep for that part?
He came off as a little bitter.
Yeah. He was very much like, my mom wanted to be an actor and didn't, so she put me into it. And
it's taken him years of therapy to come to all these conclusions.
And I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm blast, everybody. So I guess, it's in the documentary too. But yeah, these revelations are just coming out. But you're right. It's a thing. But we do get Blanche being like I said, trying to be altruistic, but again, coming off as I'm gonna make her look like an asshole.
I love that scene with Blanche's mother when she pulls her aside backstage.
You're the lucky one, Blanche. Really, you are. Someday it's going to be you that's getting all the attention, and when that happens, I want you to try to be kinder to Jane and your father than they are to you now. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I hope you'll try and remember that.
I won't forget. You bet I won't forget.
I have to say, the younger Blanche, the scene lasts less than 5 minutes, but that mature actress who plays younger Blanche, she's actually really good, right? I mean, the looks that she's giving when the mom's telling her and the mom kind of puts some heavy shit on her too, because she's like, well, one day you're going to be the center of attention. Well, what if she doesn't?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know that. You don't know she's going to grow up and be a huge star.
Well, cut to 1934, and
these scenes are cool.
These scenes are really interesting. When they're, I think that this is probably just a studio screening room, and they're watching old movies from Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. The Bette Davis one is called Parachute Jumper and Ex-Lady, both from 1933, and the Joan Crawford movie is called Sadie McKee.
Okay. So they're watching these old Bette Davis movies, and I think the idea is to kind of telegraph that Baby Jane has grown up. They're trying to put her in adult roles, and she stinks, right?
Kind of shady to just Betty in general.
Well, because they're showing old Bette Davis movies.
Because they're showing old Bette Davis movies.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I thought that she had always had this reputation of just being one of our finest actresses.
It's such a weird moment of seeing sort of behind the curtain of film finance also, where you have this exec who's presumably put all of this money behind this film, who's just losing his mind because it's not good enough. And I feel like prior to this film, that wasn't something that the public really saw or was super aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Hollywood wasn't in the business of making movies that made Hollywood look bad.
And that's what was so shocking about a movie like Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
That it rubbed a lot of people the MGM guy the wrong way.
Yeah.
That this is not a flattering movie about Hollywood.
The system, yeah.
And the system, yeah.
And we learned that now Blanche, like her mother predicted, is the huge star. But she's put all these clauses in her contract that for every movie she makes, they have to have a vehicle for Baby Jane.
So interesting.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Which is something that you would have probably have seen at the studio system.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like
You'd
an
have to
example.
be a big star to get away
but
with
it's
that.
like, I guess that Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine, but I don't know if they would have ever had something in their contracts like this.
It seems like it would have been the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Olivia de Havilland would not have been. It was not at my studio, not on my watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. But this is just a brief, a brief little thing to kind of show us that, like, now that they're adults, Blanche has come into her own, and Baby Jane is like, she's a big old stinker. She was cute as a child star and
she's getting washed up as an adult actress.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and a well-known drunk about town.
Oh, that's right. They do mention
Responsible
that.
for why she's so terrible.
Yeah.
She was like the Lindsay Lohan of her time.
Exactly.
I love that. I mean, hey, again,
Showing up to set late. Yep.
They can't insure you if you're a wild drunk.
I love these brief scenes of this opening on the lot because I'm a sucker for any scene in a movie that's on a movie lot and a showgirl walks by.
It's very Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody in like a suit of armor.
Yeah, I love
showgirl,
that. A cowboy.
Yeah, I was going to say like an Apache chief, like somewhere. I think that's in Ed Wood. But then it cuts to the kind of amazing opening scene, which is like this very mysterious. Yeah, I guess it is a big twist because it's very mysterious. This opening scene.
You get the car,
Yeah.
and somebody gets out of the car to open the gate,
and so the car just rams into the gate. You're to assume that it crashes right into the person, and then you get the cool like the baby doll with the broken face,
yeah,
and all that, and the logo. This old timey car that has this crazy like shifter with like like a lever on it.
There's going to be no support for you in that front seat if you get in a car accident.
There is no seatbelt in that car at all. But yeah, so we get the big accident that sets up like the whole movie, and then it just cuts like right into the present day, which is 62.
And this beautiful old house in Hancock Park, and shot on location in Hancock Park because you can drive by this house.
On McHatton.
Yeah, I think it's around Larchmont, I think.
Does it cut right into the neighbors?
Yes.
The mother and daughter?
Who's Bette Davis's real-life daughter.
Yes.
Obsessed with her performance in this movie.
Yes.
Gee, she must be about 150 by now.
As a matter of fact, dear, I think Blanche Hudson's just a few years older than I am.
Really?
Yes, dear, really.
Well, how come we never see her around? We've been living next door to them for 6 months now. And the only one I ever see is that fat sister slouching around. Don't they ever have company? I mean, it must be awful. Julie says that sister is kind of peculiar. Did you ever notice that?
No, I never have.
Well, that's what Julie told me. She said that she was supposed to be responsible for the accident that crippled her sister Blanche.
Well, that all happened a very long time ago, dear. And maybe you shouldn't pay too much attention to everything that Julie Fowler tells you. There's too many people in this town with nothing else to do but talk.
Maybe so. But Julie's folks have lived here a long time. I guess you should know.
Turn up the volume, dear. We're missing the picture.
It's so terrible, but I kind of love it, though. Because it's just that stiff television actress. It's just that stiff television acting.
Uh-huh. The actress's name is B.D. Merrill. In Feud, she was played by Kiernan Shipka of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Sabrina and Mad Men. Yep.
Who I think is way more beautiful than the actual actress. I don't know if that's shady, but
sure.
I mean,
it's the truth, though.
I mean, come on. When I first watched this movie, I never was like, "Ooh, who is it? P.U. She's terrible." I was just like, "Whatever." She's just like
kind of have to be like looking for it, or like have it be pointed out that Bette Davis's daughter is in this role, and she kind of had a reputation of she wasn't very good.
Sure, but it's just they're the neighbors. They live next door to the Hudson sisters.
She's watching old Blanche movies on TV.
Yes.
And that would have been a thing around this time and the making of this movie, that a younger audience that may not have seen Joan and Bette in the movie theater were now discovering these movies on TV.
Yeah.
and how that was just sort of reaching a new audience. And that was kind of one of the things with Warner Brothers making this movie, is that there's a whole new audience that has never seen these two on the big screen, and this is like their big introduction to them from watching these movies on TV.
Right. I mean, I remember growing up in the 80s, and cable was a new thing, and network television was still huge, and just all weekend long would just be movies. Like here in LA, you just put it on Channel 5 and you just watch movies all day, all afternoon on Saturdays and Sundays.
And especially at this time, that it would have been like a marathon of old Joan Crawford movies that would just be on in the afternoon.
Right. Well, this is the same logic that was employed by Mr. Gus Van Sant when deciding to remake Psycho.
Sure.
That modern audiences were not familiar with it, so let's give them something that they can latch onto.
For the MTV generation.
I think it was successful, but that's another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ever going to get around to that one? Wait, did we do that one? No, we didn't.
No, not the Gus Van Sant Psycho.
We should do a commentary for the Patreon.
Yeah.
For the Gus Van Sant Psycho. But the neighbors, the daughter's watching TV, and she's like, "Oh, that's," she notices that it's Blanche, right? That it's the neighbors, and so we finally see, the inside of this house. This crazy. I mean, it's not quite a mansion. Mm-hmm. It's just a nice house in Hancock Park.
Sure. It's set up in the studio lot scene that they're about to move into Valentino's old house to like a much bigger and more exciting home, and for some reason the accident trapped them in this tiny rat hole. Tiny rat hole mansion. That they do a really great job of making feel very claustrophobic, even though it's clearly from the exterior shots like a palatial, wonderful Spanish style home.
Yes.
All you see is just Blanche's bedroom, the stairs, and the kitchen.
Well, no, you see like the parlor or the living room. Yeah. When
like the foyer that goes from like the front door.
Well, when Victor Buono comes over and she has tea with him downstairs and does like the piano and all that. But it's got that thing that like sometimes like older people's homes where it's like, I guess just all the curtains are closed. Yeah. It's just really dark.
There's rooms you don't use or go in. They're for company.
Yeah, just furniture that never gets...
That's one of my favorite parts about walking around San Marino is just sort of looking in the windows of these old mansions pretty much.
Yeah.
And they just look dark.
Yeah.
They look dark and scary.
Yes.
Could there be a Blanche upstairs of one of those houses?
In any one of those houses.
Possibly.
Something just as kooky as whatever happened to Baby Jane is going on right now in each one of those houses. I guarantee it. But yeah, this it is funny that this house is kind of, I mean, it's dark and it's it's been occupied by these two, I hesitate to call them spinsters. We haven't even talked about, the whole concept of what this genre of movies has kind of evolved into, or not even evolved into, but what they kind of refer to this genre of movie. We haven't said the dreaded Hasploitation. Yeah.
Hasploitation, Psycho-biddy, Grande
Dame Guignol.
That's always a hard word for me to pronounce.
Yeah. Hasploitation.
It's just sort of exploiting older actresses when their looks have faded and they're just starting to get desperate.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I would say yes, but this one sort of backfires. The first couple times you watch this movie, your jaw's just on the floor for like how gruesome it is. And then the more you watch it, you're like, oh, this is actually like a very sort of like beautiful film about how women deal with aging and what Los Angeles as a city like does to people and what, the proximity to fame with people next door. And so it actually ends up like I feel like this is like, the Oscar version of Hasploitation.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of the broken dreams of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially being from the height of their career to just plummeting.
Yeah.
That they're now at this low point and they're just confined to this house, and all they have is each other.
Yeah. I think the first time I heard the term Psycho-biddy or actually Hasploitation was from John Waters. I think it was in a commentary for one of his movies, and I was like, "Oh my god, Hasploitation is so amazing! It's going into my vernacular today." But yeah, it's interesting that you're saying this is like the Oscar version, or kind of like the highbrow like Hasploitation movie. But was this movie at the time kind of not a B movie?
Well, I think
not
that
an expensive
I think
movie.
it sort of started out as a small B movie for Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
and probably Bette and Joan got to the point where they could become affordable to have them both in a movie with each other.
Yeah.
And it was just probably a movie that was directed at young people for the following years after Psycho, that they were just going to get on the psychological horror bandwagon of the early 60s, and just the public loved it. And it just sort of became an Oscar movie because it got 5 Academy Award nominations, including 2 acting nominations, one for Bette and the other one for Victor, and it won for black and white costume.
Okay.
So it just sort of became like this awards movie.
Right.
Even though that was probably never really the path for it.
Yeah, I think initially they were probably just like, let's make some money.
And if we're supposed to believe Feud, and I think this is actually the case, that Joan brought this book and property to Jack Warner.
I think that's the actual, yeah. If I remember correctly.
And she had this idea of, you should put me and Bette in this movie. I've always wanted to work with her, and this is sort of this is such a good vehicle for both of us.
Right. Okay. We finally get inside this house, and Blanche is wheelchair bound. Mm-hmm. This is a 2-story house. There's no elevator.
No.
I love
no Gremlin's chair that whisks you up and down the
Gremlin's
stairs.
Chair. That's what they fully could have done that in the 60s. Yeah. I do love that there is a velvet rope on the wall going up the stairs.
I mean that staircase is it's like the 4th character of the movie.
And it's one straight shot. There's no landing. It doesn't turn at all. It doesn't curve. It's just boom, straight up the stairs, like Brady Bunch style. But she's pretty much, now you're just like, okay, she's like literally trapped up there. Because
and she's reliant on Jane.
On Jane.
To help her.
Baby Jane. And Jane has taken to, oh my God, just the way she shuffles around this house, dragging her feet on the floor. Every move she makes, you can hear Bette Davis.
Just Bette acting with her entire body. And when she's dragging her feet, walking up those stairs, it's so good.
She is just so tired of everything. Like she just, she's just like, cannot bear to give any more fucks about anything in her entire life. But, they did it. It's interesting because I don't know if it's just a generational thing or if it's a status thing, but this like silver tea service that she takes, all the meals upstairs to Blanche. She takes all the meals are underneath a silver cloche on like a tray, and like all the cutlery and everything is just this beautiful silver that she's using. And it's, again, I don't know if it's just something that like, well, old people do that kind of stuff. They're so much more formal. Or is it just like, no, we're rich, dude. I'm I'm using the silver every day.
The scene where she's polishing the teapot for Victor is just the hopeful date. Like,
that
prep
crazy teapot is like, and that's like the old timey like coffee like percolator thing that's like plugged into the wall. So Blanche is dependent on her for everything. She has a buzzer to buzz downstairs. She's got a phone in her bedroom at the beginning of the movie.
And her bird.
And she's got a bird in a cage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Her only friend.
Her only friend. And Elvira.
Yeah. I love the actress that plays Elvira. I think she's really good in this movie.
Elvira is the housekeeper who comes once a week. She just comes one day a week. That's it. Because otherwise, I'm just like the whole time. I'm just like, tell Elvira, like tell Elvira. But they keep coming up with these like reasons for Elvira not to be there, which is like kind of clever.
And Elvira just straight up calls Jane out on all of her bullshit, like to her face.
Yeah,
of that. I don't like you. I don't like your intentions.
You're drinking too much.
You're drinking too much. You're treating your sister like garbage.
Yeah.
You're opening the mail.
Oh,
yes. She discovers the fan mail that because they've been showing the movies on TV, she's been getting a lot of fan mail recently. And Jane has been hiding it.
Yes.
And opening it.
Well, she's been throwing it away.
And throwing it away,
yeah. Yep. Right into the trash. But, you know, Elvira fishes it out of the trash. She shows it to Blanche. But the whole time, Blanche just keeps making excuses for Jane. She's like, oh, no, she's not sick. Like, I don't know. Just residual, I don't know, not guilt.
I mean, this is just that difficult person that she's been dealing with her whole life.
And it's her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just like, yeah.
Just sort of making excuses for her erratic behavior.
Yeah.
Instagram psychology would call that narcissistic abuse.
Ah,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Blanche definitely borderline personality. Is that a thing?
It is a thing.
I mean,
that's my personal psychology.
Jane and Blanche had like an Instagram account. I don't even want to know what they would be posting onto that account.
Blanche's would be so insufferably boring and twee.
I mean, wouldn't it just be like just the same picture of the driveway?
Here's my bird.
and the bird. So I love when Jane comes in and she's like, I'll clean the bird's cage. And she like takes the cage. And then when she like shuffles back upstairs and she's just like, what does she say? She's just like, bird got out.
Yeah. Deal with it.
He flew away. And Elvira's like, you let him out. She's like, I told you. It's cleaning the cage. Flew out. And she just hangs up the cage back.
Okay, the empty... Yeah, but why would you not put that in storage somewhere?
Why put the empty cage back?
She wants Blanche to look at it,
though. To see it, yeah.
And see that her only friend in the room is now gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how, like, sadistic she is.
Yeah, yeah. I do love this bedroom. So we have the bed with like this crazy contraption, this like bar that she has, you know, to hoist herself from her chair onto the bed and back and forth.
Beautiful glamour shot of Joan when she's young.
That portrait above the bed, yeah.
And I like to think that Joan brought that.
She brought her own.
She brought her own. She brought her own portrait.
100%. She had Mamacita take it off the wall and wrap it in brown paper, brown like.
Mamacita, it's coming with us to Warner.
Yeah. She may have brought, like, options.
Yeah.
She might have brought, like, 3.
The rest were in her dressing room.
Yeah, yeah. Choose the one you want. It's interesting. I can't think of her name, from Feud, that played Joan Crawford. Why can't I think of Ryan Murphy's muse?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Jessica
Lange.
Yeah.
Is she doing a Joan Crawford impression? Is there a Joan Crawford impression?
I think she's doing a Joan impression.
Is there one to be done? I don't know.
I mean, don't we all just become Joan Crawford at a certain age?
Well, yeah. I mean, we all, or Faye.
Yeah.
Just become Faye Dunaway. But yeah, when I think of Joan now, I do think of Jessica Lange and this delivery of her.
It's how she hits those A's. Crawford.
Crawford. Well, also there's the mid-Atlantic accent that, you know, everybody just has at this movie.
Well, and especially that when you sort of look at the talent of both Joan and Bette, that Joan was sort of a product of the studio system, that they were perfecting the right celebrity, like the right actress. So she was just sort of groomed by the studio. And I think that from everything I've read about Bette is that she was the more raw talent of the two.
And like, Joan kind of went through the paces of the system.
Yeah, and Bette wasn't afraid to look disheveled or ugly for a role. Like, she was really into transforming into the character.
Sure.
And you can really see it well done in a role like Baby Jane.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do like the idea of Mamacita wrapping the portraits in butcher paper with tweed. Like old-timey Christmas presents. So the first time Elvira leaves, she says she's got jury duty. So she's out. She's gone for like 2 weeks or something. And, Jane is bringing up, lunch and dinner and on all these meals one at a time. And the bird flies away. You think the bird flies away. And it's the next day. It's her dinner because she didn't eat her din.
Well, you're getting also the whole discussion that Blanche is going to sell the house.
Yes.
Because they are kind of living off of Blanche, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's all of her money.
I mean, I guess we're just to understand that Jane's acting career as an adult never took off, so she never really couldn't have made that much money. So everything that they're living off,
and they can't quite afford this house anymore.
Is it because they can't afford the house, or is it because Blanche just doesn't want to live with Jane anymore?
Probably a little bit of both.
I don't know. But she, we get some information that she's been talking to her money guy, and he's putting the house on the market, but Jane doesn't know. But the first real instance that we see of abuse is the dinner of finely sliced tomatoes. And
the tray presentation of that bird.
She went through some trouble.
Yep.
So many tomatoes.
Were
sacrificed for this platter.
Yes.
Beautiful garnish of tomatoes.
Yeah. It was a bed. Does she have one of those mandolins? I don't know. But
I want to see a scene of Jane making this plate.
Well, this was done at a time when American cuisine is notoriously looked back on as being pretty gross. So I kind of wish that the bird was like in Jell-O or something, like in aspic, like in a mold.
The only thing about this film I don't buy is that Jane is making all of these meals. Like there's a pork chop at one point. It's like does she have it together enough for that?
Right.
It seems complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, especially with all the booze, like there'd be something in those meals besides like a bird, a Band-Aid or a fingernail or something.
But like scenes like this with the dead bird, the dead rat, that's just the great camp elements of the story that so many people just really remember. Like that's why this movie is just regarded so high as this camp classic are these crazy scenes.
Yeah. Well, I think too at the time this was kind of thought of as a horror movie, like in the way like Psycho. Today to modern audiences, you'd watch Psycho and you'd really think of it as like a psychological thriller or something. But to audiences in the '60s, this is like a straight up this is like they're going to watch like Saw or something, right?
Sure. When she lifts up that tray.
Yeah.
I love the score of when she's about to lift up the tray. I think it's with the rat.
It's with the rat because she's like going to... No, it's with the pork chop.
Oh, sure.
Because that's when she goes to like every time her like hand goes to it and then she stops.
And you fully hear like drums.
Yeah. But she eventually stops and doesn't do it and leaves the play. And that's like the psychological like brilliance of Jane. Because the first day she leaves the dead bird, just laughs her ass off. Then the next day, she brings in food, and Blanche doesn't touch it. And she's like, and that's the din-din that she doesn't eat. You didn't eat your din-din. And then she ultimately takes off the cloche, and it's a full, like, pork chop, picks it up, and just, like, bites into it. And I think we're to believe that this has been there all night since the previous... This is yesterday's dinner.
And she didn't bring her breakfast.
Yeah. Because she didn't
eat her din-din.
We didn't have to refrigerate things in the past.
Oh,
that pork chop can just stay out all night.
Yeah.
She can eat it in the morning.
Fully
it's fine.
cooked, it's fine. Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments of this movie and the performances of these two is when they sort of have these quiet discussions where they're just sort of contemplating just their lives. But you are in that chair. That, like, Blanche is reliant on Jane. And it's just this power struggle between these two. And you can just see both of these actresses are playing it that they've had this entire past.
Yeah.
I think those scenes are really good.
Yeah, they are. I think it's really interesting when Blanche will like float an idea by very nicely, and then Jane will just be like, "What? Why are you gonna what?" And just kind of like snap at her for something, and then she'll kind of like roll it back and be like, "Well, actually," and it's just the way that she deals with her. It's like she'll try something, she'll put her foot in the water, and then like if it gets a bad response, then she kind of like shifts gears, and everything that she says to Jane is just in the very like almost like placating way to not upset her.
Mm-hmm. And there's that moment right after the "You're never getting out of that chair, Blanche," where she mentions the accident, and she says that you promised me that you would never mention that, and you can tell that it's a sore subject.
Jane. Jane, do you remember when I first came back after the accident? You promised you wouldn't ever talk about that again. I know I did. But I'm still in this chair. After all those years, I'm still in this chair. Doesn't that give you some kind of responsibility? Jane, I'm just trying to explain to you how things really are. You wouldn't be able to do these awful things to me if I weren't still in this chair. But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
But you are in that chair.
Oh, God, that is one of the greatest line reads of all time.
Yeah, it's really good. And I love that little bit of score. And it's almost like Jane's like kooky theme where it's, I don't know what it is, like strings or something.
Yeah.
It's
and especially how this
bewitched.
shot is framed, that it's shot from outside and it's looking through the bars on the window. Mm-hmm. You're looking through Blanche's prison.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder if it was just a choice from Bette that she was going to do the jar. Like she was going to just combine those two words with, but jar, not you are, jar in that chair.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Just
so good.
Maybe it was just in the moment. She was great, though. Yeah, that view from out that window. She can see into the driveway. She can kind of see the neighbors. Mm-hmm. I love Jane's interactions with the neighbor.
Yeah.
Because the neighbor lady, she's trying. She's really trying to just be like, oh, hi. And she's just like, shut up. Mm-hmm. I do not have time for you right now. So first thing that happens is Jane finds out that Blanche has been trying to make phone calls to the banker guy. Because first thing she does is rip out the phone first.
Yeah.
Right.
She leaves it off the hook, so she can't make any phone calls.
Well, that's what she does that downstairs. She leaves it off the hook. Then she's like, why was the phone off the hook? Blah, blah, blah. Then she goes to the wall and like rips the cord out of the wall. Because at that time, your phone was like, it came out of the wall like cable TV. It wasn't a plug. Mm-hmm. Like you had to have like a guy come and like install it because it was like the city owned it. I think the city's like owned your phone or something. So yeah, she rips it out of the wall, and so that's like the first time Jane feels like she's really trapped up there. Or I'm sorry, Blanche. Is that when you aren't ever going to sell this house? Mm-hmm. Because they kind of get into an argument about the bank guy. Yeah. Or the money guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we find out that there's nothing going on in the house that Jane doesn't know.
Right.
Yes.
And we find out that she has been, although, I mean, a little obvious, but we find out she's been spying on all of Blanche's very limited activity.
Oh, right. Because Blanche says, like, oh, well, I called him, like, a week ago. And she's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, he didn't write you no letters.
He didn't write you no letters. Yeah.
Blanche's voice when she's... or Jane's voice when she's trying to disguise herself as Blanche is kind of amazing. And I was reading that it is actually Joan.
Well, yeah, it's actually... But my favorite part about when she's doing the Blanche impression...
And that's like crazy next level.
Yes. Well, first of all, that's like Psycho, right? Mm-hmm. That she can, she does this pitch perfect impression of her sister. But Bette Davis's performance... when she's lip syncing the lines,
it's so good.
It's crazy, just so over the top, like woo, like rolling her eyes everywhere. You have to watch it. just for that. But
she cut off her liquor delivery. Like, you have to give it your A+ performance to
Yeah.
get that.
Oh,
to get
yeah.
that booze coming back to the house.
She's got to have her brands.
Yeah.
I love that
Same
when she's
brands.
same brands.
I forgot what she orders, but she orders a lot of booze. I do love the scene that's shot from inside the kitchen cabinet looking out, and it's just like bottles and like empty bottles of booze. She's just like looking through. But we have a little bit of Blanche kind of like, or Jane kind of telling Blanche that she knows what the hell's going on.
Blanche, you aren't ever going to sell this house. And you aren't ever going to leave it. Either.
I think the first clip that we played is the scene that follows this.
Yeah, that's right after that one.
You know what's kind of interesting about this movie is that I think that it really goes in hard with the camp elements at the beginning of the movie, but then there's kind of a middle section, an ending that I kind of forget about. That it does go into some dark places that you're like, oh shit, like this movie's getting to be a lot.
Well, we need to talk about Jane's plan to break back into the business.
Yeah. She posts in the personal columns.
Well, I mean,
what does she say? The personal. I've always thought the personals were nice.
It's just so much nicer.
So much nicer.
She posts an advertisement that she needs somebody to accompany her on piano.
This costuming.
I love her going out outfit.
So she goes to Western costume to have all of her the things that she performed in as a child remade.
Yes.
In her adult
Dimensions.
60-year-old size.
Yes, she says that she has taken in all of her measurements and all of her old costumes, to be refitted or just completely remade.
Her fans are waiting.
The fans are waiting. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of it in the trailer at the top of the episode when she is at the newspaper placing this ad for an I keep having trouble saying this word, for an accompanist.
Mm-hmm.
Accompanist. So she's placing this ad, and the guy's like, "Okay, I need your name, to place the ad." And she's like, "What did she say? Like,
don't you know who I am?
Don't you know who I am?"
Mm-hmm. Baby Jane Hudson.
And he looks at her and he's like, But yeah, he says, "Okay." And it's like, why even ask? But he asks, "Do you want to place this in the want ads or the personals?" And she says, "The personals. It's just nicer." Mm-hmm. What the hell?
Yeah.
She needs a piano accompanist. And then this is when we get, the amazing Victor Buono. This performance to me.
So good in this movie. Just sounding like they're fresh. His mother is like fresh off the boat from like Britain, from like wee Britain.
Yeah, the two of them together living in this bungalow in LA.
He's in his daytime business suit, his pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
It's presumably like 3 p.m. He's looking at the want ads, finds Baby Jane's advertisement, but I guess he's also looking in the personal ads for a job. So maybe this was just something that
you did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. I love, though, his back and forth with the mother. It's amazing. I love that they live together. And also, this little, like, bungalow strip that they live in, it's so LA. Like, there's still places like that. They look exactly like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you walk down the little sidewalk right in the middle, and there's, like, 2 little houses, identical houses on each side of you, and then one in the back. I was just like, I know exactly, like, the type of place.
What's interesting about how this movie is shot, and it was probably a budget issue that they couldn't work on the back lot a lot. They couldn't build a lot of sets, so they had to shoot a lot of stuff probably on location.
Yeah.
The scenes where Betty is driving to the newspaper, it's just Bette Davis driving in a car. Like, they didn't do, like, rear screen production. Like, she's fully, like, driving down Highland.
Yeah. That's another thing when I watch that scene. I'm like, where is that?
It kind of looks like Highland. Highland or La Brea.
Who knows? I mean, at that time, it could have been anywhere. Totally different.
But yeah, it's like it's not a sort of overly produced rear screen rear screen projections. It's just Betty driving in a car.
Yeah, or B-roll of a different actor or something, and then cut to the close-up. It's like it's fully her.
I love when she turns on Larchmont and is in the exact same horrifying Larchmont traffic in Larchmont Village that we can get in right.
I
this
hate
minute.
that corner of when you're like about to turn that corner and it's always so backed up.
Yeah, absolutely. You listeners know what we're talking about, right?
And Larchmont, for the most part, still kind of looks the same.
Yeah,
as it did back then. Like, there's not a lot of tall buildings over there. Like, everything's sort of just sort of at street level. Have you ever done a drive-by of the house of
the Baby Jane house?
Of the Baby Jane house?
Oh yeah, of course.
We need to. We've never done it.
I thought we had.
I don't think I've never done it before.
Oh, then maybe I haven't. Maybe I was just looking at Google Maps.
It looks. It's exactly in the same. Untouched.
Yeah,
The gates are still guarding the front door and the full.
That's crazy. Those. I love that like Spanish style where there's like the wrought iron gate in front.
That Edwin Flagg could not get inside of.
He was so drunk.
Bette Davis at the same time.
So yeah, we get Victor Buono these amazing scenes with his mother. We get he tells the mother to act on the phone like his secretary. And she's just like, oh yes, he'll be right with you. Like she takes all the information from Bette Davis. I love just that like neither of these two characters know what the hell they're doing. They're both stumbling through all of this.
Yeah.
She's just like, sure, like, yeah, come to my house. Like we'll figure this out.
And she agrees to pay him $100 a week.
Yeah. A lot of money.
A lot of money at that time. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money now. But yeah, he's just like, he's faking it that he's like, well, I don't know if he's faking it because his mother sounds British, but his accent is more pronounced when he's talking to her. When he's talking to the mother, he's just a little bit more like, it's wild. Like his whole character is crazy. But clearly neither of them knows what they're doing, but they're playing it off like they do. And so they just keep kind of like one-upping each other with like questions and demands until ultimately she pledges to pay him $400. And she's just like, does that sound okay? And he's just like, yeah. And he's like, the look in his face is like, holy shit. And at this point, she's just like, yes, sweet. All right, I got it. Like, we're going to do this. Like, let's go out to dinner. Let's have a nice dinner. And which is interesting that he turns down the nice dinner. He's just like, oh, I got to go home.
He had to go back home to mother.
Yeah, but you don't want to like be rude to your new client that's paying you all this money. I loved though too when she's like you said earlier, she's polishing this crazy teapot thing, and she serves him tea. And then she has a little plate of like little finger sandwiches, and she holds up the plate, and he grabs the plate and walks off with it. And she just looks at him like, the fuck did you just take my whole plate?
But she doesn't care because she believes she's on a business date with him.
Yes.
And is very concerned that when he mentions Delia, his mother, that he might have a wife or a lady friend tucked away somewhere.
Yes.
And that her chances with this obvious alcoholic are perhaps doused.
Yes. And
as this is all happening, Blanche is just sort of eavesdropping on all of this. That she's just like, oh my God. Like, even for my sister, this is getting...
Like, what the hell
This is getting
going on?
too much.
Yeah. This actor that we're talking about, Victor Buono, that I keep mentioning, I remember him from as King Tut from the old Batman.
Yeah, the old Batman
TV show
series.
He's in that. He's done a couple of other things.
He was in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte.
He was, yeah. Which was a follow-up to whatever happened to Baby Jane. We'll talk about Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Because that story of that production is crazy. But yeah, so she kind of like decide, she makes this deal with this guy that he's going to like, help her rehearse these songs. When she goes upstairs, because Blanche starts buzzing. Right? She goes upstairs. And when she comes back down, he's already kind of tinkering on the piano. because the sheet music is there, and she just starts singing.
Oh, this scene is so.
She starts singing.
This scene is so creepy. I love how Bette plays this scene.
She starts singing "Letters to Daddy," right? Mm-hmm. Uncomfortable,
so unsettling.
I've seen this movie several times, and my brain won't access this part of the movie. Like
Sure.
it just shuts. It's too disturbing. It shuts down. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I love though when the two of them. I think it's when he's ready to leave, and she stands up on the first step of the staircase so she can be like the same height as him, because he's a tall man and she's like a little, a smaller woman. So she has to stand on the first step, and now they're looking at each other eye to eye. And she's just telling him how excited she is and how this is just going to be like, she just knows that this is going to be like the best like collaboration. And he's just like, So, all right. So where do we go after?
Oh, he wants to know how quickly he can get the money. And
right
when they're on the stairs, and Jane is calculating in her head the amount of time it is going to take for her to starve her sister to death.
Yeah.
So that she can be rid of all of that and run away with this man.
Right. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and the other thing from FX Feud is that we find out that this actor is like...
Who's gay.
Is a homosexual.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I do kind of love the portrayal of his kind of friendship with Bette Davis that they kind of showcase in the series. But, something about... again, the period, maybe a generational thing, also partly the mid-Atlantic accent situation, but he's not exactly playing it, he's not playing it super gay, but he's not playing it super butch either. So it's kind of like, is she not seeing certain signs? And I don't know that the character is supposed to be homosexual, but he's a grown unemployed man living with his mother.
He's a confirmed bachelor.
Exactly.
He just hasn't met the right woman, Pete.
And Jane Hudson just might be her.
So he goes home, and his mother is... Later in the film, they're getting ready to go to dinner, and his mother is horrified to find out who is employing him, because there's talk around town that baby Jane Hudson has injured her sister critically, ending everyone's career.
Yes, that's right. I kind of love that. That now it's kind of like this Hollywood like secret that this has happened, and it's not really a secret because there's all this gossip that people are just like, well, what I heard is that she ran away
with a man that she didn't even know for 3 days.
Oh my goodness, 3 days. Okay.
Elvira.
I mean, we have to get to Elvira getting to the house. So at what point does Jane kind of tie up and lock Blanche in the bedroom? Because eventually we get to this.
So we've got the scene where Blanche. Jane is out of the house, and Blanche goes into her room and finds a box of chocolates. And as Blanche is being starved by Jane and psychologically tortured, she finds a box of candy in the dresser and just starts shoving it into her mouth.
Yes,
which is like a wonderful secret eating scene.
Yes, these huge chocolates, and that's just such, to me, again. It's just such like a grandma thing to just open a drawer and a full box of chocolates in a drawer.
Mixed in with your clothes.
Yeah.
Your unmentionables and your chocolates.
I mean, if it was my grandmother, it would have been cherry cordials. She really liked those cherry Oh, they're so weird. Like, I don't know what that...
If it was my grandma, it would be taffy.
Taffy, okay.
Yep.
All right. Would your grandmother have a candy of choice?
My grandmother...
In her top drawer?
Yeah, no, not a candy of choice, but she would order a pizza, spray it with Glade, and then leave it out on the countertop for a week eating from it. Periodically.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, all right.
That's so fascinating.
Okay. I mean, I'll take the cherry cordials.
I'll take my taffy.
Taffy, that's very interesting. Salt water? I don't know what the difference is. Is there only one kind? The little individually wrapped ones.
Yep.
Well, yeah, so Blanche makes her way in there. I do love this scene where she's just shoving this candy. I mean, she's starving. She hasn't eaten, she's been withheld, food all this time. And
I feel
she has to make her way down the stairs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These scenes of Joan crawling down the stairs to try to get to the phone.
I also don't buy this scene because for like 30 years she's been like working out on this like pulley bar that she would get herself out of bed with. She'd be ripped by this point.
She'd have some upper body strength, I think.
She could drag herself down those stairs. Like this is And
it's got to be pretty easy, a little easier to get yourself down the stairs too. I mean, gravity's helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's just getting your way back up. Mm-hmm. Is going to be the hard part.
Yes. So when she's downstairs on the phone,
she gets the doctor on the phone.
She calls the doctor, and I love that I love the nurse, like the whole thing with. I mean, I guess who else is she going to call, really? Right? I guess she would have to call the doctor and just have him come to the house and just be like, I don't know, do something.
She didn't call the police.
Yeah. At that point, I feel like at that time, like, what are the police going to do? Like, it's just two spinster sisters. Like,
these two bickering sisters.
Yeah, wouldn't take it seriously.
But the doctor could probably, like, presumably commit Jane.
Yeah, or something. At least get Blanche out of the house or something like that. But yeah, so she calls the doctor, interrupts him. He's busy right now, but she's like, "Oh, it's urgent." And Jane walks in and finds her. And does she call the doctor back immediately, or is he still on the phone?
She calls him back.
Yeah. And she does the impression.
She does the voice.
And I love that the doctor is just like, okay,
sure.
Guess we can't interfere if she wants to see another doctor.
Yeah. So never mind then. You're fine. You were frantic 30 seconds ago. Yeah, this doctor, I don't know. But what is he going to think? That it's her crazy sister doing an impression? It's so outrageous. But
so when we did our rewatch last night, there's something about the pacing of this movie that I always forget how long this movie is. That I'm always just like, well, when are they going to get to the beach? And it's just like, oh, we still have 40 minutes left of all of this drama in the house. Of like when Elvira comes back, she kills Elvira, and that's when you really know that like, oh, like shit is going down. Like she is starting to murder people.
Well, I mean, once Blanche gets downstairs and Jane like kicks her head into the wall and like knocking her around all over the place,
and like one arm drags her up the stairs.
Yeah,
the carcass of Joan Crawford sliding across the floor.
Although I do have to say, when Joan Crawford is sitting in the bed, there are scenes of her just sitting in the bed with her two legs stretched out in front of her, and there's that kind of cushion pillow with the two arms, that you can get for the bed to sit up in. She's sitting in one of those with her little legs stretched out, and it's just like she just looks so tiny. She just looks super teeny weeny. Like, oh, okay, she's like a little tiny little old lady, practically. And then I start to think, people would often talk about like her shoulder pad, like obsession, right? And
of
like
just wanting to present yourself like you're. I shouldn't say larger, because it's like obviously Joan wouldn't want to.
No, she wouldn't want to make herself.
She wouldn't want to look herself larger, but just I guess have like a presence about her.
Mm-hmm. But I think that I think it was the director of Mildred Pierce that would like reprimand her for wearing shoulder pads on set or something, because the character of Mildred Pierce was not that kind of lady. Mm-hmm. But then he was just like, oh, but then like I reached to like snatch them out from under her blouse and I realized that those are her actual shoulders. It's like, really though? Mm-hmm. I think that's just one of those like crazy Hollywood like stories that's like been embellished over the past like 70 years.
Maybe this is why she was doing all the jogging that her housekeeper had to like drive alongside her for.
There you go. I like it.
Had to slim those shoulders down.
Yeah. In my preferred workout outfit of the gray sweatpants.
God, I love that.
Black Chuck Taylors, the gray sweatsuit.
Like Angela Lansbury in the opening credits to Murder, She Wrote.
Yes.
White towel, Laverne and Shirley, like
sweatband in her hair.
Yeah.
Like the full, so good.
Any good like woman working out pre like 1980s wore this uniform of the gray sweatsuit. and the Chuck Taylors. And that is what I wear to the gym today. No, it is not, actually. But I should.
Yeah.
It's a good look. Mm-hmm. You sweat off the pounds.
Yep.
Right? I do love that scene of her jogging in Mommy Dearest.
So classy.
And I love that she's just like punching the air. She's like jogging. She's just so pissed off.
What do you guys think of Joan's performance in this movie? I think that she's sort of the unsung hero of this movie because I don't think this movie works without this grounded performance. That you can have Betty's crazy performance, but Blanche is just kind of the straight man. But there's moments in it that Joan really Joan really tugs at my heart of when she's talking to her sister. I think she's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the makeup artist is 90% of Joan's performance. Mm-hmm. Like it's a lot of like it's just a lot of contouring.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, especially considering what their relationship was like, for her to just quietly let Bette Davis do whatever the hell she wanted must have taken a tremendous amount of restraint and just eaten her alive inside.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that if she just would have been okay with being in supporting actress, she probably would have won over.
I don't know who's in. The Miracle Worker.
It's the Miracle Worker.
Yeah.
It's Sean Astin's mother,
Patty Duke.
Patty Duke.
Maybe. Yeah.
But Joan was just that proud that she had to be in lead.
And Blanche doesn't really have like a big acting moment. Like she doesn't have like a big like monologue.
Well, she has that scene in the bedroom that we played.
Yeah.
And also the big reveal at the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's true. So, there's a lot of physical stuff with the two of them.
And that's the thing is that when I revisit this movie, I kind of forget about all these scenes or just sort of how casually paced it is until the last act of the movie. That you're getting like Bette Davis run around town in like her car, the whole thing with Victor, Joan like crawling down the stairs, Elvira getting murdered. I kind of always forget about those scenes when revisiting it.
Yeah. When Elvira's like, she's like got like a screwdriver and a hammer and she's just like, if she's got you tied up in there. I love her delivery there. Yeah, but I feel like once we get to this part, it does kind of like start to like kick in a high gear a little bit as far as like the action or whatever.
Yeah.
I forgot that Victor Buono comes back to the house again pre-beach and sees Blanche in her room.
And just leaves her there.
Nothing. And does absolutely nothing. Which is like, I feel like the realest, if we're looking at it as a movie about Los Angeles, that is the realest moment
of
what someone in this town would do.
I'm not getting roped in with this big bag of crazy.
Not my monkey, not my circus.
Yeah, totally. And like maybe if the neighbor would have gotten, the crumpled up piece of paper, maybe she would have gotten involved somehow. But yeah, although when he does go to the house and he sees her there, he was kind of picked up by the police at one point.
He was just wandering on the neighborhood drunk, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's running. He's like hysterically like looking for someone when he runs out of the house. And Bette Davis is like, he's going to tell.
Yeah.
I presume that is what actually... This movie does like a really weird thing with time, like as you're saying, like a really weird thing with time where like who knows what's happening at any point.
Yeah, like how is this movie set within like a week and a half, 2 weeks, a month? You really don't know.
Right.
And I guess that just speaks to these two being confined with each other in this house, that you just don't really have a good grasp of time.
Okay, it says a few days later, police call to tell Jane that Elvira's cousin has reported her missing. Mm-hmm. Right, because, and I do love when Elvira goes into the room, Jane sneaks up on her from behind with a hammer.
What does she do with Elvira's body?
She puts her in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, she wraps her like a mummy in a blanket and then puts her in the wheelchair.
Like full Norman Bates style.
Yeah. And when she was wheeling her out of the house, we were noticing, I was like, that blanket is just it's wrapped up with it's wrapped pillows underneath it. It's just filled with feathers. So light. She's just like bouncing it down the steps into the driveway. And yeah, the neighbor sees her in the carport because the garage door is up or something. So the neighbor goes over to her and she's like, "Oh, I saw the lights on your car and I thought that you left your lights on. And so, I wanted to come and check." But she was just mid stuffing Elvira's body into the car. But I mean, are we to believe that her body's just in the trunk the whole time? Probably.
No, because the police report said that she was found in the valley.
Oh, that's right.
So she just drove her out and dumped her and
rolled her down a hill.
Yeah.
So
dumped her on Reseda.
I'm just trying to put myself, if I was in the position of being one of their neighbors and I'm witnessing all of this happen, what do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, like a true Angelino, you do nothing.
You do nothing.
You keep looking out your window and telling your friends about it, but that's
just wait quietly for it to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. It's like,
if I was such a big fan of this actress that I knew was living next door, would I just do all in my power to try to go in and meet her? That I'm busting down the store that I have to go talk to Blanche upstairs.
And she doesn't even know that Blanche is confined to the upstairs. There's rumors about the accident, but we don't know if they're true. We just know that the Hudson sisters live there. So it's but if Jane has been such an asshole to her openly, she's so hostile. I mean, I don't know if I would really try that hard. I'd be screw that. That sister's a weirdo, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I have the impression that she kind of has an idea that something is going on that shouldn't be.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I do love when she talks to the daughter, and she's just very much "Ooh, I can't stand that Jane Hudson." She's like, "You look like you just got into a fight." She says, "I'm not sure that I haven't." I think I got into a fight with her, but I don't know. Just the neighbor's fascinating. But yeah, when Edwin, when the cops catch him out there, and she's like, "Oh no, I know him. It's fine, whatever." She brings him in the house. Busts his way upstairs because he hears something, and he goes in the room, and he sees her tied to the hook thing, and he's like, "She's dying." He says, "She's dying." Bolts out of the house.
Yeah,
and nothing to do with it.
And at this point, I feel like it wouldn't have been crazy if he ran into the street and a car just hits him.
Oh, yeah.
Just hit by a truck, hit by a bus, as he runs out into the middle of the street. Because that's just how crazy, this stuff is going down, right? But yeah, it's pretty much from here that she's just all right, we're getting out of here.
We're going to the beach.
We're going to
road movie now.
We're going to Malibu.
Yeah. And this last scene on the beach is crazy. We always try to see if we can clock the reshoots. Because
they did studio reshoots. I think it's when Jane is doing her little dancing. I think those are all in a studio, and maybe in some close-ups of Joan.
I think there's the close-ups of Joan as Blanche laying on her back, right in the sand.
I'm so concerned before the sun comes up about how cold Joan Crawford must have been in that scene. That's all I can think about. She's in this gauzy nightgown that she wasn't in when they left the house. So presumably she dressed her up for their road trip to Malibu.
True, yeah.
in her finest, night thing.
Black, isn't it? Yeah. It's man.
I love all these beach scenes because it sort of turns into a 60s beach movie. You hear swinging beach music,
yes.
Frankie and Annette style.
Yes.
All these young people at the beach.
Well, the music for this movie was written by Frank Devil, who famously wrote the Brady Bunch theme.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Yeah. And so there's that it's that thing that they do in TV shows when kids are listening to hit music, but it's not any real music. It's just
Well, it's like on Scooby-Doo, whenever you would open on the Gang and they would be dancing in like a restaurant.
Yeah. To just nondescript, like, kind of rock music.
Do you ever remember going to the beach as a kid and there would be concession booths? I think that's so interesting that I don't know if it was ever a thing of just having like a hot dog stand or going to get ice cream at the beach.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's
a thing,
still
right?
a thing. Corona Del Mar has a stand that advertises delicious hot dog sandwiches.
Ooh, a hot dog sandwich. Just a regular hot dog? They just call it a sandwich.
Because I've seen that.
And it's cut in half and it's on like Wonder Bread.
Oh,
yeah, it's
what?
viral. Yeah.
No.
Because I've seen that at the boardwalk in Santa Monica, but never up north by Malibu, though.
Maybe in the 60s.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah, different time, man. That's, I mean, famously, hot dog on a stick. That's how they got started.
Oh yeah, they were on the beach in Santa Monica, right?
Venice.
Oh.
Or yeah, probably Santa Monica. Yeah.
I just know that scene from Charlie's Angels Full Throttle,
where they built a hot dog on a stick, like on probably this very beach.
Yeah.
That this scene is shot on. Yeah. No, yeah, that's how hot dog on a stick got started. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated by this hot dog sandwich. I don't want one. But
were you never given this as a hot dog as a child?
No, but I did have one wrapped in a tortilla several times.
That's just delicious.
I mean, pretty good. I'm not going to lie. They're not bad. It could be counted as a struggle meal, but I mean, I'm not against it in a pinch. So, I mean, I'm not against just eating a hot dog on a fork off the fire. But then you have to like hold your fork over the stove. Okay, maybe we won't do that. But yeah, wrapped in a tortilla. Good stuff. This concession stand is kind of awesome. These two cops just like, it's like beat cops.
Yeah, they're just like working PCH. Stopped at the local snack shack by the beach for something.
And they don't notice Jane just like twirling.
And also Jane parked her car like in the middle of the road.
Well, yeah, she double parks it. She just stops it, which we don't find out until we get to the cops because we get introduced to the two of them on the beach, and Jane is already at this point just twirling, right?
No, at this point she's like playing with strange children. She's like demanding that they like bounce her
throw
their
the
ball.
beach ball.
So this scene kind of has me triggered because working in retail and a grocery store, I hate having crazy older people talk to people's children without asking.
Yeah.
Like just approaching children and just talking to them.
Yeah.
And then try to do shit like that with kids. I
Yeah.
hate that. And it's always so awkward. I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the parent. Like I've witnessed stuff like this and yeah, it's super awkward.
Even the kids in this scene when she's just like reaching, like gesturing for them to throw the beach ball at her.
And there's nothing-
The one kid's just kind of like, I guess. Like,
And there's
just
nothing
throws-
more unsettling than somebody old acting young or like trying to act like a child.
Yeah.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. And I mean, whatever the actual ages of these actresses, Baby Jane Hudson is in this like crazy, kabuki like makeup. Mm-hmm. So she just looks extra, extra nuts on top of all of it. But yeah, this one guy comes over to the cops and he's just like, this car's double parked. I tried to go around it. I almost got stuck in the sand. Go look at this car. And they're like, yeah, dude, whatever. Like, we'll look at the car when we look at the car. And then he says the type of car it is. And they're just like, oh, shit. Like, we're looking for that car. Mm-hmm. Right? And they go over. And you see the car. And it's fully just stopped in the middle of the street. Do they immediately go rushing over to the two of them? At what point does Blanche spill the beans?
Well, I think
is it on the beach?
It's on the beach with them. I think it's before she goes and gets the ice cream.
Sure.
And Blanche has attempted to confess this earlier in the movie, and she's stopped herself too. So we've sort of gotten hints that everything about those events of that night when she hit the gate maybe didn't quite go as you think it did. And this is when we get the whole story that they were at this party. Jane was sort of embarrassing Blanche, kind of putting her on blast, and Blanche was just really angry at her. And she was the one driving. Blanche gets out of the car. Blanche floors it.
No, Jane gets out of the car.
Or Jane gets out of the car to go open the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Blanche floors it and
hits the gate. And this car that she's in is such a tank that it
snaps her spine.
Her spine in the driver's seat. And Jane was so drunk she didn't know the difference.
And didn't she run away and ended up shacking up with a guy
that she doesn't even know for 3 days?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Ugh.
Scandal. So this is the big gag of the movie. This is the big, huge reveal. This is the twist. And you're just like, what? But it's interesting because there are scenes when Jane is kind of not lucid, I guess the opposite of lucid, when she goes into these very childlike states. And that's when you kind of start to maybe sympathize with her a little bit.
Yeah.
But then you're but no, she killed the bird and served her rats
and murdered Elvira.
With a hammer. But yeah, it's interesting.
I don't even know how how you would even diagnose Jane in this movie. What exactly? Is she borderline?
I mean, it's schizophrenia.
Yeah,
schizophrenia. Yeah.
And then the booze on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. The whole impression, the voices, that stuff is so crazy too. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, so she kind of tells her, all this time that it was actually Blanche's fault.
And Blanche sort of has a hand in how unhinged Jane has become.
Mm-hmm.
That also Blanche is partly responsible for all of this.
Or entirely responsible for
exactly.
all of this.
You mean all this time we could have been friends?
Oh.
But then she resolves it with ice cream, as we all do.
I mean, what can ice cream solve?
Easily forgiven.
But then
with 2 big strawberry ice cream cones.
Yeah, but then Blanche is floundering in the sand, just I think I'm dying.
Yeah.
This is the moment we're laughing the hardest at, which
Yeah.
is really telling.
She's I need you to get someone right now.
Now, wasn't there a big thing on Feud with her breasts in this scene?
Because she's laying on her back.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted them to be
perky,
pointing upwards.
Oh,
she wanted,
and
she
they
wanted,
are in
she
the
wanted
movie.
Perky bosoms.
In the movie, it looks like she's standing up. They're pointing straight up, but it's that could have just been a good foundation garment.
She just threw some shoulder pads in there,
and she had God knows she had plenty. So the twirling on the beach, man.
She has an audience. This is
yeah,
she sort of
again.
Goes back to childhood performing, and she has this audience of onlookers who are just gawking at this crazy woman
who has already been apprehended by the police.
Mm-hmm.
Who are just letting her
yeah.
twirl in the sand,
yeah.
as we do with all criminals.
True. I mean, they kind of just ignore the twirling for a while when they finally do see Blanche, because Blanche is a couple of feet past everything, all the action.
They know she's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so they're just oh shit, there is a dying woman in the sand. Jane steals the ice cream.
She does. It's unclear whether she knows she's stealing it or she thinks it's a gift or the ice cream is free for,
that is true. She's just in a fugue state at this point. So, yeah, it says the ending is ambiguous, leading the viewer to ponder what happened to Blanche. Yeah, I guess that's true. We don't know if Blanche dies.
When I was watching this film with a friend last night, and we were sort of pondering how this got released in a time when we still had the Hays Code, because there's so much dark stuff here, and there's so much exposure of the Hollywood system. But then there's just this horrifying, you're watching this woman dying in the sand, and that just wasn't something you saw at the time. So it was I wonder if that was the original intended ending, that we don't know what's happened to her, or if it was just, we can't say that she's dead because this will get yanked.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also, wasn't part of the Hays Code that, like, the villains had to get their comeuppance in the movie?
Yes.
So
you would need a whole, like, scene in a newspaper that's like Blanche goes to prison.
Jane
goes to prison.
I mean, I
They
guess
should both go to prison.
Right, because that's what I was going to say. Like, the cops are there, so we as the audience are like, all right, well, Jane's finally going to get what's coming to her for, torturing Blanche all this time. But we've just had this big reveal. So do we as the audience now turn on Blanche and say, like, oh, okay, well, it was her fault all along. So is she the villain? So it's just like the ending's so crazy and just kind of like this like mind like fuck or whatever that you just, does Blanche deserve a separate comeuppance, as the villain, to die?
I feel like Blanche, we are so worn down
Yeah.
by the end of this
Yes.
film
Yeah.
that, like, you're not operating on a logic, on the basis of logic at this point.
So that's probably how they got away with that, I guess. But yeah, very interesting. I mean, this movie, like you said, Scott, was a huge hit, right, for the studio. Did it bring the two of them more roles afterwards?
Well, it was the beginning of the end for Joan. She was never in a major studio movie like this after. She was cast in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, quit after arriving on set in the South with Bette Davis. She didn't want to do the movie. It's very unclear exactly why she quit the movie, too. If it was script issues, if she was just still bickering with Bette, nobody really knows.
Sure. She's in one fleeting shot. The car drives up to the mansion. She's in the car. They never reshot that, but you can tell because she had black hair, and Olivia de Havilland, who replaced her, was blonde, and so you can tell that it's not Olivia de Havilland in the car. The thing with Sweet Charlotte was that the roles were going to be a little bit reversed, in that Bette Davis was now going to play the. I don't even know how you
the victim.
The victim. There you
Miriam
go.
is kind of the Miriam character is like the villain of the movie, and that's who Joan would have played.
Yeah, so they were going to kind of flip it around so that Joan could play the villain this time. But yeah, it didn't work. That was unfortunate. And Joan's last couple of movies. I mean, we've never seen Trog.
What?
We've attempted to watch a little bit of Trog, I think.
Did we? I don't even know.
And it's pretty rough.
Is it watchable?
It's
Is it worth
delightful.
watching? Okay.
I mean, a couple more White Claws.
Sure.
And Trog.
Those scenes in Feud are so sad when she's making Trog, too.
And she makes, oh God, what's the film where she's like an axe murderer?
Oh!
Straitjacket?
Straitjacket.
Straitjacket.
We've seen Straitjacket.
Straitjacket's actually kind of great in its own way.
Yeah. What was the one that was probably right after
I Saw What You Did?
We just watched.
We just watched I Saw What You Did. Millie did it on her podcast.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen I Saw What You Did?
No.
Oh my God, it's insane.
She's barely in it.
She's barely in it. She's like top billed in the movie, but for all intents and purposes, she's the main star of the movie. It's about these two teenage girls that are making prank phone calls. And they call a guy that murders his wife.
But what they do is they call random people in the phone book, and they just say, "I know who you are, and I saw what you did," and then just laugh at whatever the person says. But what they didn't know is this next person that they're going to call right before they call, he kills his wife.
Yeah,
and so they say it, and the guy's like, oh shit. So now he's after them, but they're these teenage girls. And Joan Crawford plays his neighbor
who's in love with
him and wants him to leave the wife or something. And yeah, it's this whole deal. It's just very melodramatic and crazy. But just the idea of these two teenage girls in the 60s, just opening up a phone book,
making prank phone calls,
calling random people, making prank phone calls.
Also directed by William Castle, who did Straitjacket.
It was William Castle. You're right.
I love that this is a world, a really dark world of Henry Orient story. It's great.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, she's really good. I mean, the few scenes she has in it, she's beautiful, you know, and it's just like, just
she
her career building up to Trog.
Classes up this straight up B movie of I Saw What You Did, and she kind of gives the movie a little class. That's what's kind of fun about it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I Saw What You Did. Let's see, Berserk.
But just
The Lucy Show.
But just one of those actresses that just she had to work, and she was going to work regardless of the material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in the documentary Mommy Dearest, we find out that she also did some daytime television.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. She replaced Christina on that soap.
Oh, my God. Which is like...
Those scenes are great in Mommy Dearest. They're some of my favorite of the movie.
Well, it's really good because there's that thing where she's kind of like... She needs the cue cards, and they're just like, what the hell is going on? And then she just takes a shot of, like, vodka or something.
And she's beating the pack of cigarettes on the kitchen counter. Like, there's something about that detail that's just so much.
But after she takes the shot, and she's like, all right, let's do this. She's like, pitch.
She
perfect.
nails it.
And you're like, oh, that's why she's been in this business for so long. She also did do an episode of The Lucy Show.
I love that episode of The Lucy Show where she's cleaning everything, and Lucy and Ethel just like think that Joan has fallen on hard times.
She's doing spring cleaning, so all the furniture's gone. Or they think that she's like cleaning someone's house. They think it's like not her house. I don't know. It's weird.
I think that they just think that Joan is working as a maid.
Yeah. Blonde Joan. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely like, now it's like probably, Trog was 1970, I think.
70 or 71.
Yeah. And the hair in Mommy Dearest, when she takes over Christina's role, it's kind of like that. That wig is amazing.
It's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Heavy is the right word. It looks like there's like oh man, I love it. We'll post some pictures.
So we talked on our first Oscar episode of this Academy Awards that Bette lost Best Actress to Anne Bancroft, and Joan accepted Anne's Oscar for it. That's like, we talk about that story.
Yes.
Do you think Betty should have a third? Should she have had a third?
Did she deserve this Oscar?
Did she deserve that Oscar?
It's a really good performance. Like we said, she's acting with her entire body. She's like inhabiting this role.
The pelvic roll she does when she's like walking through a door while she's carrying something, just that alone, that and the eye rolls should have taken it all.
Oh, yeah. You didn't get that in The Miracle Worker. That's for sure. I think that if I was voting, I would probably vote for Betty. I would also want to see her have a third. And I like that she was just that proud of a person that 1 or 2 Oscars wasn't enough. She had to have a third.
Because nobody
had done it before. Yep. Katharine Hepburn.
Did she have 3?
Katharine Hepburn had 3.
Okay.
I mean, Katharine Hepburn has like 4.
Oh, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if the documentary Feud is to be believed, and
I love that we keep calling it the documentary Feud.
If Bette Davis really was having a relationship with the director at the time of filming,
right,
and she was willing to, while courting this gentleman, put on that full face of makeup and that body and really go for that, I think that alone, putting that relationship at stake, I think that, that's Oscar time.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this was sort of, I guess that Grace Kelly sort of deglammed for The Country Girl, and that's how she won over Judy. So it was kind of the early years of when you deglam yourself for a role. Oscar.
Sure.
Nicole.
A brave
performance. With the nose. Oscar. Charlize in the fat suit. Oscar.
That wasn't a fat suit for Eileen Wuornos.
It wasn't a fat suit.
She put on those pounds.
She put on those pounds.
She was tipping the scale at 125. She gained those 20 pounds. That's an old Jeanine Garofalo joke. I think what she was talking about Marissa Tomei and the Perez family. That's how old that
Oh,
joke.
geez.
That's how old that joke is.
Talk about a movie that does not exist anymore.
that Marissa Tomei put on 20 pounds, so she was tipping the scale at 120 for the Perez family. How brave! But she did not win an Oscar for that. The transformation. Is it still something that we're rewarding? Yeah,
Of course.
yeah, definitely. I mean, those are kind of recent examples. Although both of those movies are 20 years old.
Oh, they're like 15 at this point.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But yeah, the whole idea too of Joan going from actress to actress, offering to accept the Academy Award on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. Those are fun scenes of feud.
They're great scenes of feud. How real is this, do we think? Is this like... I mean, it happened.
It actually happened, but it's probably one of those things in real life. It was probably maybe less conniving because she just saw the opening and she took it. She knew that 3 of those actresses were probably not going to win, so it had to come down to Anne Bancroft or Sweet Bird of Youth.
Sure. Geraldine Page.
Geraldine Page. So she just saw that opportunity and took it.
All right.
It probably wasn't her and the gossip columnist like plotting for all of this.
Right.
It was probably just as easy of her looking at the nominees.
Yeah. And also seeing it, Anne Bancroft was headlining a play on Broadway. Mm-hmm. So just thinking, well, she might not.
And probably going into that ceremony, Anne Bancroft was probably the favorite to win.
Sure. Well, I mean, this movie has a crazy legacy.
Oh, yeah, and that's what's fun about it, is that both these 2 actresses just have this larger-than-life reputation. We're probably landed in the middle if all of this is true, but that's what kind of makes it fun, is that just all of the stories that surrounded these actresses having this feud, not liking each other, but working on this movie together.
Right. I mean, I think Mildred Pierce is a great movie.
Yeah.
I think this is way more watchable.
Yeah.
I mean, this has like rewatch.
Well,
value.
I would
we could just put it on.
I would also say just both completely different movies.
Well, yeah, definitely. But I mean, these are 2 actresses that have a huge body of work. Each of them.
A huge body of work, but this is their number 1 movie on their IMDb most known for.
Yeah.
That it just sort of towers over their filmography. That they did late in their career.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that they both got these roles when they were in their 50s?
Right.
Especially at that time in Hollywood.
Do you have any other movies from either of them that you prefer, or would you say that you're kind of like more drawn to this because it's just more fun?
I think I'm more drawn to this. I mean, I love Mildred Pierce.
Yeah.
Same.
I feel like I should be much more familiar. I definitely should be much more familiar with Bette Davis's career. All I can think of is Jezebel at the moment, and that is just a punishment.
And Jezebel is the one with the red dress,
yes.
right? Where she comes down in the party in the red dress.
Yes.
And everyone's like gagged and gooped by this like debutante wearing this red dress.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that.
I
that
could
movie.
not tell you what that movie is about. And I've seen it several times.
And I like
All About Eve?
All About Eve.
I love All About Eve.
I like All About Eve.
Oh, of course.
So good.
But if I'm in the mood to watch that kind of movie, I'll watch Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're not exactly like go hand in hand, but...
And the thing about Sunset Boulevard is it shares all of those themes, but there's something about how Sunset Boulevard, how it's made like a current Hollywood movie. Like the pacing is faster, the editing is quick.
Yeah.
It's just a snappier movie.
Yeah.
No no disrespect on All About Eve.
No.
Yeah,
but I
it
think All
plays
About
like
Eve is
a movie of its time.
It feels longer. It feels like a little bit more of a slog to get through. And she's so good in it. There's great, there's some really good scenes and fun scenes to watch. And Marilyn's in there for a second. And you're just like, oh, there she is. And those are fun. But and I love is it Celeste Holm? That's like her.
Yeah, she's great in that
fiddle.
movie.
She's really good in that. But I feel like something like Sunset Boulevard just goes down a little easier, a little quicker. And same for for Joan, I feel like I don't really have a lot of like we love Mildred Pierce. Love the women. She's really good in the women.
Oh God, I forgot that she's in the women.
Mm-hmm.
Previous episode of our show, The Women.
Also in the women, she is not a minor character because her character kind of like really sets everything in motion.
Right.
But she's not really on screen for most of the movie.
Yeah, she's
But when she
cumulatively
is on screen, you're just like, oh, she's awesome. Like she's really a cool character. But yeah, I feel like this movie just because it has like it's fun. Like it is dark, and there's a lot of that darkness to it. But I think it just has something about it that it's just super watchable. So, is it streaming anywhere?
I don't think so.
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon
Prime.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Very cool. So we'll definitely put that in all the
good use of the two. I have not seen the Whatever Happened to Baby Jane TV remake with the Redgrave sisters. I still need to get to that. Starring Lynn and Vanessa Redgrave.
Oh. And what year was that done? 90?
Yeah, 91.
Feels like 91.
This is like the Christopher Reeve window.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when Pete and I were watching the movie, we were trying to think of like, okay, so who of like, if they were to make this movie now, like, let's just pretend like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane didn't exist. And just like, if we were to cast these two with modern movie stars, who would be in the 2021 Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? And we landed on Julia Roberts and Sandy Bullock.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. So there was a moment where I was going to swap out J-Lo for Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
But Sandra Bullock was my very
definitely
first.
In there. Yeah.
They both have to be Oscar winners.
Well, I think, too, for me, it's that they've had this like career longevity.
Career longevities, both America's Sweethearts.
Yeah.
America's Sweethearts turned Oscar winner, too.
J-Lo could have worked, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and Sandra Bullock had that dark moment of being married to the white supremacist.
Jesse James.
Yes.
And she thanked Jesse James in her Oscar speech, and we were all like moved to tears, and then all of that shit hit the fan like the week after.
So we've got Scandal.
Yeah.
And we've got what has Julia Roberts ever done that wasn't kosher?
Well, I mean, I feel like Julia Roberts' love life in the early 90s was kind of a mess.
But that's kind of unfair, though. It's like you can't, like, I mean,
just sort of like it was just all over the tabloids.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's like it's one of those things that like that never like when that shit happens now, it's like you can't be going around talking about troubles in love. That's so like Taylor Swift. But what I was going to say is that she was like notoriously like a pain in the ass, like on set.
Especially
like everybody hated her on Hook.
Especially
like, they made T-shirts about like how awful she was.
Especially like the years following the Oscar nomination for Pretty Woman. I think she had a reputation of being
she was supposed
very
to be
difficult.
Like a terror. Yeah, like Sharon Stone levels of like the crew hates her. Kind of a thing.
And it's one of those things that now it's probably leveled off and she's fine to work with.
Yeah. But when she was younger, I think that was.
And I don't know if like Julia and Sandy were ever pitted as rivals in the press. They probably were. These are just two
in like modern era. They do that more with pop stars, than they do with actresses.
There's a bit of an age difference, or maybe not an actual age difference, but like a career difference between the two, where they didn't quite hit at the same time.
Yes,
sure.
Sandy was a little later,
because I mean, it didn't really take until Speed for Sandy to be like a household name.
Yeah, and that was 96,
94.
What year was The Net?
The Net was 96, I think.
It was after Speed.
It was after Speed.
Yeah,
it was. Okay. I mean.
And Pretty Woman was...
Because she did While You Were Sleeping in, like, 95. Pretty Woman was 1990.
So Steel Magnolias was 88, 89?
89.
Yeah. So that could work. But, we were talking about how in the old Hollywood system, they would crank out these movies. Like, so many of these movies. To the point where they showed these clips at the beginning of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane of the two actresses as younger women, and were just like, as the audience, you're not supposed to go, oh, that's Bette Davis and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I don't know what the hell that movie is because they made so many of them.
And it's one of those things that these
movies.
2 movies that they showed in Baby Jane were kind of deep pulls from their catalog that your average moviegoer weren't familiar with. That's probably why they worked so well.
Yeah. But you couldn't do that with modern actresses. Like, what are they going to... I mean, like, maybe Sandra Bullock does have a couple before Speed that were kind of like, she doesn't really want to talk about. Did she do some horror movies?
I mean, she was in... Yeah. I mean, I want to say that around the time While You Were Sleeping came out, there were some weird direct-to-video releases of just these B movies.
You know what you did?
Don't say Love Potion number 9 because I love
because that's actually
because I love that movie.
But she did the working girl sitcom.
Sure. Yep.
Woof.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes.
She did the working girl sitcom. Yeah.
And she's probably done quite a few failed pilots too.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Could you make a movie not campy, but I mean, I don't know. How do you even describe the type of like horror that this is for like a modern movie? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not like Asylum, like Sharknado levels of...
I mean, I guess would the equivalent of it where Julia and Sandy are in like a Blumhouse movie together? I don't know.
But are they at the point in their career that there's kind of been a lull and we're going to get them back? See, that's the thing. So would it really be Suzanne Summers and Goldie Hawn?
Sure, maybe.
Oh God, like a more later Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Oh man, but I mean, we recommend.
Oh yeah,
you watch this movie,
mm-hmm.
even if you've seen it before. Watch it again. I mean, it's a gem.
It's a favorite of the gay community too. We love this shit.
Well, yeah.
We love these 2 actresses, and they're fun to see playing these crazy roles.
Yeah, for sure. We sometimes like to wrap it up on any final thoughts that we have. I mean, this movie's just been parodied. It's been through the ringer.
I was just thinking of all of the references to this movie that have been done through the year. RuPaul's Drag Race on All Stars did
Mm-hmm.
Whatever Happened to Baby JJ with Alaska and Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
That's really funny. It's the episode that Alyssa went home on. There was that commercial done by the photographer David LaChapelle.
Yes,
with
MTV.
Courtney Love and Madonna.
Oh yeah.
And then French and Saunders did a Baby Jane.
Yes,
sketch.
they did.
Yep.
There is also a Simpsons reference in which Comic Book Guy and Principal Skinner's mother are courting each other, and she shows up and they're like roasting each other as part of their courtship. And he sees her and says, "Oh, goody! Now I know whatever happened to Baby Jane."
I think that Comic Book Guy and Agnes Skinner are just like a match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, people, you've got some homework to do if you want to see all the homages and parodies and spin-offs of this property. But I mean, so many people have definitely already seen the documentary FX's Feud. But that's on Netflix, right?
No. We just own that.
Feud? Mm-hmm. We own that? Jeez.
Yeah, it's on our Apple TV.
What don't we own? Well, I mean, what else is there to say about about Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Does anybody else have any last parting words on this amazing movie?
I think that about does it.
I think that about does it. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
ready to go spray a pizza down with some Glade.
I mean,
oh my God.
Why not?
Yes.
It's about that time. I'll go pick up a box of cherry cordials from my local Disneyland candy shop.
Where do you even purchase something like that?
I don't know. There might be one or two in a box of Whitman's, like a Whitman sampler.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Like in CVS in like the deep part of the candy aisle.
Yes, indeed. Oh my goodness. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on our show. This was so much fun.
It was a pleasure. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Kelly,
Great.
I find your Instagram delightful. I love what you post. You're very funny.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Kelly. This was amazing. We'd love to have you on again in the future. You're welcome to come on anytime you like.
Mm-hmm.
But until that time, it's time to bid you adieu. Till next time, Kelly. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Yes, indeed. This was another fun one. I love this movie.
Pete, it's Pride Month.
It is.
We didn't give a shout out to our last episode, which was our first episode of June.
Yes,
but,
indeed.
Happy Pride Month.
Exactly.
I'm always bad about scheduling themed movies for Pride Month. I guess that 12 months out of the year is Pride Month for us.
I know. We're a gay podcast. Mm-hmm. We talk about queer things all the time. But yes, indeed. Happy Pride, everybody. Thanks for listening. And we've got some Patreon shout-outs.
Yay, Patreon shout-outs.
Indeed. We've got some fun shout-outs. We'd like to say hello to our friends and our patrons, Jacob, Michael, Charlie, Heather, Muffy, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emily, Aaron, Melinda, Jim, Jessica, Nick, Christine, and Rufino. You guys, thank you for being a friend. If you would like to check out our Patreon, head over to patreon.com/moviesthatmadeusgay.
Check out the membership tiers.
Yes, indeed. You can listen to some extra special exclusive content like alternate commentary tracks. Mm-hmm. We watch a specific movie, we record a commentary watching it, and you can watch the movie with us. Sync it up to the commentary track and listen to our thoughts.
By the time this episode comes out, there should be a new one there.
Yes,
too.
Indeed. You can check out our thoughts on movies like 10 Things I Hate About You,
Scream 2, Legally Blonde, Empire Records, Halloween H2O. We've done a lot of them.
Clueless,
Beetlejuice.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton on there. New ones coming out every month. Also, a fun newsletter with some great behind the scenes, pictures, some really fun articles written by the both of us. Scott's, movie reviews and trips to the video store. Some really fun gossip columns. Lots of cool stuff on the Patreon, so check it out when you get a chance. We are also now available to listen through Audible.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
That? Yeah.
I'm an Audible member, not a sponsor of the podcast yet, but it was kind of cool to look up our podcast on Audible on the app and find us.
Yes, indeed. We just got on there, as well as Amazon Music podcasts. So
sure.
If you listen through Amazon Music, you can find us through their podcast, and that's free. There's no subscription required for that. So you can also, we would love it if you would rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts.
Give us 5 stars, please.
Yes, indeed. Smash the 5-star button and also write us a good review. We'll read it on the show.
Yeah.
We've read some of our awesome reviews on the show in the past, and we'll read yours if you write one. So head on over to Apple Podcasts and do that. But in the meantime, my name's Pete. You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna.
And I'm Scott Youngballer on Instagram, Oscar Scott on Twitter, and just Scott Youngbauer on Letterboxd.
Yes, indeed. Head over there and check us out.
See what I'm watching.
Yes. We are also at Movies That Made Us Gay on Twitter. No, we are not. We are also at Movies That Made Us Gay on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, we are
MTMUG Pod.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. We'll cut that all together nicely.
Sure.
But until then, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.